Hey guys, it's Brooke again, and I am here this week to talk with you about how to be confident in conversation and when speaking publicly. I'm here today with Alex Fiddleman, who is a certified clinical hypnotherapist. One of his specialties is actually conversational hypnosis, so I could not have picked a more qualified person to talk to this subject about with you guys. So welcome, Alex. Thanks for being here.
Hi, how you doing?
Great.
Very nice to be here.
So could you tell us a little bit about how you got involved in hypnosis and kind of where you started off on this path?
Right. Well, I was involved in the corporate world before. I actually worked in banking for quite a few years, and then it just happened so that I was involved in some negotiations, different processes that involved negotiations about certain products, about certain companies, and I wanted to improve my own negotiation skills. So probably about more than 10 years ago, I went to my first training. It was about persuasion, different techniques, which involve NLP, neuro linguistic programming, and conversational hypnosis. And that's how I was introduced to the industry, but I wanted to use it for things that are not therapeutic, mostly just for me to be able to sell better, to present myself better, to negotiate, to persuade. So, but then as training after training, I was introduced to this beautiful community of people, of hypnotherapists, and I decided to start doing that full time. So now I'm running my practice. I'm helping people with a lot of issues from the from the perspective of hypnotherapy, helping them transform their fears, their anxieties. Well, we don't like the word anxiety. Their anxious feelings when it comes to all sorts of issues and public speaking and all kinds of conversational issues when they need to present themselves is one of the very very common things that I work with clients
So I
with.
love that I love that you got into hypnosis as more of a supplement to what you already had rather than fixing a problem. It was more just to kind of give you that boost of being that much better, to just improve yourself. That's fantastic.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, hypnosis is not what a lot of people think. It is. There are a lot of misconceptions and myths about hypnosis, and people uh, the way they look at hypnosis is mostly based on some occasions when they were in a stage hypnosis show, or they've seen some shows on TV, or they see some videos on YouTube, and they draw conclusions that, oh my God, there are two kind of main extremes, two opposites. Some people say it doesn't work and it's just a placebo effect, and it's just we can convince ourselves to do anything we want. If we don't want it, it'll work. It will not work. If we do want it, it'll work. On the other side, the other extreme is hypnosis is so mighty and powerful that, like in that Manchurian Candidate movie, you can hypnotize someone to go ahead and do something terrible and not remember what he did. There are two things here. Not talking about the first extreme, because that's not, there are skeptical people, and it's true. If you don't want to be hypnotized, you will not be hypnotized. But let's talk about the other extreme. Can you be forced to do something that's against your will or against your moral principles? Not unless some other techniques are used, which include some psychotropic medications, and perhaps torture, which totally deprives the person of his identity or his ego
Right.
consciousness. If you torture a person for enough time and then you use some hypnotic techniques, God forbid, I've never witnessed that. If I read about it, I can conceive of that happening. That you can literally make the person do something, and the amnesia will be so strong that it will be similar to what's called some somnambulistic patients who can go very very deep and forget. Even when the suggestion is given, you will forget something, you will not remember it, or you will forget to remember it. they will actually forget to remember it for quite a long time. Now, there's been evidence saying that you cannot erase anything from a person's mind forever. There will be a situation where, under certain circumstances, memory, like Bourne Identity, Jason Bourne type of situation, under right circumstances, subconscious mind will open up enough to bring up whatever memory that was so suppressed, if it's relevant. So nobody can override brain, and we only understand so very little about how brain functions. So going back to this issue, what is hypnosis? A lot of people don't understand it. They think it's I can made to cluck like chicken in front of people, and what is it? Well, there is truth to that, but no one will ever make you do anything, regardless of how deep the state of the trance is, if it's against your moral principles, if it's against your code of ethics, if it's against whatever you stand up against. Now, why do certain people entertain others when there is a stage hypnosis show? Well, the answer is very simple. Look at how any stage hypnosis show works. The hypnotist will be there testing the audience, and there are certain ways how you can test the audience, both overtly and covertly, to see who's more responsive and who's less responsive. But then, not everyone who is tested would still be will go on stage. First of all, the person needs to be really willing to do that. And who doesn't know that they will be made cluck like chickens on the stage? They do know that, right? So not only are they responsive, and the test shows that, they are willing to be entertaining. And guess what? You will find all sorts of people. There are doctors, there are lawyers, there are, whoever. You will rarely find actors and actresses there. Why? I mean, of course, this is not like, 100% truth. You might. I haven't personally. There are people of all walks of life, but there is a part inside of them, this internal part, that always wanted to express itself in front of audience, and that's a perfect situation. So that gives them an excuse,
right,
which will allow them to open up. And hey, who is to blame? Of course, the hypnotist. I was totally under. We don't like the word under. In the therapeutic community, we use in hypnosis. I was totally under. I was totally overpowered. My God! But the willingness is strong enough not to override the suggestions that the hypnotist gives. So that brings us to the next point. So how does the conversational hypnosis work? Why are there are some people that are capable of persuading another person using hypnotic techniques against their will? Hey, will is it's a very complicated issue. If a person walks into a car dealership and he wants to buy a car, and the dealer is using certain hypnotic or NLP, which are very closely related fields, techniques to convince the person to buy a certain car, is it done against the person's will? No, the person came there with a specific purpose. He needs to buy a car. There is a point of ethics here, of course. Can I be made to do something against my will within a certain kind of short corridor of options? Yes, but then I know that if I do something to somebody else, it'll come back to me in a negative way, in one way or another. Not even thinking about some new age type of principles, talking about universal law of attraction and all sorts of things, karma, but just in a very practical way. It's just not it's not wise to do that. We know this. And over time, things will turn against me. So if my intention is right, and I know that I'm bringing a certain value to another person, and this is the main, we call it ecology check. It's ecological in all respects, not in the sense of environment, but it could be in the sense of environment too. But ecology in terms of interpersonal relationships, then it's absolutely fine to use certain techniques. If done right, it will even help the other person to make the right decision. Because why do we need to be convinced in situations, sometimes in certain situations, that there's something that we know there's something absolutely great that we want to have in our lives, but we still need to be convinced in a hypnotic way to go ahead and take action to do that. Why? Well, let's go a little bit, let's divert from the issue of sales or persuasion. I was a smoker, and I quit smoking with hypnotherapy. It was one of the biggest kind of, in the hypnotic community, there is a term called convincer when it comes to a hypnotic induction or self-hypnosis. There's some kind of something happening in the body that convinces you that you are in a state like, oh my God, I can't raise my hand, or my eyes are glued together, the eyelids, and the harder I try, the tighter they get, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm trying and I can't. So that's a convincer, and for me, the convincer in why hypnosis is so powerful, not in terms of hypnotic phenomenon, but just in my own experience, was how I quit smoking with hypnosis. And one of the main things that really impressed me was that I didn't realize that there was a part of me that had a very good intention within myself. A part of me that wanted to have a little bit of more personal space. It's a good intention, right? Everybody has the right to have their personal space. But the behavior was that I would lock the door of my balcony, go outside so that my family wouldn't bother me and the kids wouldn't bother me, so that it would give me a good enough excuse to close that door so I can smoke. But in reality, I wanted just to be by myself, on my own, to have this kind of personal space after a very hectic day. So that part of me had a good intention, yet, and consciously, I knew that I wanted to quit smoking, but the urge was so strong. So regardless of how much I wanted it, my subconscious mind needed to be convinced, impressed upon, in order for me to override the behavior, even though from the logical standpoint, it's clear. It's going to kill me if I continue. If it doesn't, I will not be healthy. We all know what the truth is, but we're not acting, oftentimes we act in self-sabotaging ways. What hypnosis does, it establishes communication with the person's subconscious mind and allows to not to be controlled by fears and anxieties and make the right decision. Because if you're in a state of trance, there is a fair amount of rapport, connection, trust built between your own conscious and subconscious mind, or between your subconscious mind and the therapist, if it's done with a therapist, or if it's done in the self-hypnotic setting with yourself. And if I say an affirmation to myself in a hypnotic state, provided that all other parts of me have been taken care of either hypnotically or I've negotiated with them and they do not present any resistance, an affirmation sinks right in. The suggestion sinks right in. The reason it's happening is because what we call the critical factor, which is it's like the guardian of the gate, is asked to take a walk outside. It never dies. It never, you cannot override it forever.
It's the
break. I'm sorry?
He's taking the smoke break.
Right, just, going for a walk. And critical factor is always observing what's happening, but it's convinced not to interfere. And then this communication is happening, and it's miraculous what could happen if that guardian is convinced to not to interfere, and you give the right suggestion, done in the right way, using all sorts of techniques and the right intention, because that's the main thing. People think, it's all about techniques, it's all about certain, what do I have in my toolbox? What kind of a phrase or, language pattern am I going to use? That's the language pattern that's going to do the wonder, that will actually make that happen. No, it's in one of the trainings that I had, this absolutely brilliant trainer, Igor Ledahovsky, one of my mentors, he came up with this concept. It's called H+. It just, that doesn't sound like anything, H+, but it's like this hypnotic kind of attitude really wanting the other person to be on the same page with you. And if your intention is to really help and to really give value and to really improve the life of that person with whatever you are doing, whether as a therapist or as a salesperson or as a negotiator, and you project that consciousness into the other person, could be a hypnotic gaze, but that's not what does the job. It's the attitude, it's the connection. And that's what we call rapport, a very deep and wide rapport. There are many, many different terms. Difference between deep and wide rapport, by the way, in terms of conversational hypnosis, since I brought it up, I'll elaborate on that. It's very important. Some people think of rapport as, oh, I just ask the person a couple of questions and, I'll find a way to relate to the other person. Maybe we went to, to the same school, or we have the same interests, or our grandfathers came from the same country, or whatnot, and that'll take care of the job. It might, but there is a depth of the rapport and width. The more situations you cover or you establish rapport in, the more unbreakable this rapport will be. So some people can do it in a very subtle way. There are certain unconscious rapport building techniques like mirror and matching. It's one of them, but a lot of people they don't really understand how it works, so it turns into monkeying the other person, which actually is counterproductive. But once the rapport, deep and wide rapport, is established, and the critical factor is bypassed, whether it's in a conversational hypnotic setting or a regular therapeutic situation, you establish communication with the other person's subconscious mind, and it's the language that is understood by the subconscious. That's the next point. So the first point is the right attitude, the right intention. The next point is bypassing the critical factor. And the third point, of course, the language and the techniques and whatever we know, like, NLP is quite, if you look at NLP in a very mechanical way, it is a great tool. I mean, it'll give you a lot of tools how to deliver the information. But just the language, just those tools, anybody can learn them. They will not do the job. Anybody can just sit down and just, learn it like you would learn a poem or anything you need to learn by heart, and you just go ahead and just fire those phrases at the other person. It's not going to work if you don't have the first two components, which is the rapport component, and it has to be a genuine rapport, and a willingness to really bring value, and this strong intention on your part and confidence on your part that what you are doing to the other person is actually it's a force for good,
right,
and it's going to benefit the other person. Then everything else, there are thousands of different techniques how you can get your message across.
I hate to interrupt you, Alex, but we have got to cut it for this week because that was a beautiful start. I love where this is going. I like that you believe in active hypnotherapy, not just passive, let it come to you, but actually taking an active role in your own life and making those decisions. So next week we're going to come back with you and finish off this interview. And guys, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Alex, for being here this week. And I will see you again very soon.